Last week, I said Bitcoin would break all-time highs. I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think this will take place from next week onwards, and we will take and wipe out this high. It did. I said F and XRP would pump. They did. I have given you the exact blueprint and formula over the past few weeks in the previous videos on what would be happening right now. I switched from my bearish view at the exact moment it mattered. It's crucial to adapt, and I'm glad I did, because members have made an absolute killing because of this decision and impulsive switch. If you've been watching these videos, there is no reason why you have not made money from this either. But here's what matters now. Bitcoin breaking these all-time highs has opened the gates. Like I've been saying, if a black swan is going to happen, it's going to happen once Bitcoin breaks those highs, which means as we now approach crypto week next week, we need to be cautious. But here's the good part. What happens here and what happens next could be the key to an alt season. Let's jump into the charts. So first and foremost, what an incredible outcome from the past few videos over the past few weeks that I've been providing for you guys. I mean, if you've been paying any attention whatsoever, this has literally just come through to sheer perfection, to be honest with you. And I'm now at this point in time where I'm a bit scared to say this, but I'm afraid the bullish side of me is beginning to fade away. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. And I want to break everything down for you guys here. I think the key first and foremost, before anything, is looking at that journey once again of what took place. And like I said several times now, I didn't think this was the black swan. And I said we would go higher, and we've certainly got that. Now I've added one more level to the chart here, which I haven't provided in previous videos, but this is a region I've been tracking with the members from $117,000 to $118,000, which conveniently perfectly coincides with the total market cap level I've given you guys over the past few weeks as well, with 3.64 to 3.73. Now we have struck this absolutely perfectly. And the reason why I'm becoming a little bit cautious here is because of Crypto Week, where we have the Clarity Act, the Stablecoin Regulation Act, and various other things. Now, in these areas, because we've just had that initial shake-up of, and it's only recently happened to be fair, around a month ago, or even less than that, with the fears of a black swan, and everyone saying a black swan is coming. Like I said, I think if it's going to happen, it will be once we break the highs. And quite frankly, at this level, I am already becoming concerned, because what we now need to assess here is the fact that this has happened just before the crypto week. And as always, if there's anything you've taken from the psychology videos and the psychology series that me and Bernie do for you guys, and there's another one coming this Sunday, you should know that this could very well be a buy the rumor, sell the news event now. And I am definitely beginning to shift my scope lower back into the midpoint of the 100K region. Now, it's also worth mentioning here, things could get worse. And of course, as you guys know, my original bias has always been, as we started breaking up higher, to see a revisit to the 80K region, and at the bottom is not in. But of course, I had to make a decision in this moment around here where I started seeing the signs, and I almost just regained consciousness in that moment and saw a big possibility that we were going to go higher if we got the sweep of these lows. And this is why, despite this drop happening, I flipped bias and started looking to the upside here. Again, as traders, it's crucial we adapt. I could have really have allowed my ego to have consumed me in this level, to have continuously looked lower. But by making that decision, and even delving into the world of leverage now myself, we have just been back to back to back ever since. So I hope you guys can understand that as well. This is a very important part of being a trader, especially a profitable trader. You must be willing to adapt where necessary. But of course, the key element we've been tracking here is that this move could very well become where something very, very bad actually happens. And if we do see, at least in the short term, back down into that lower end of the 100K region, that's something we really want to watch for, because as we start to assess what happens over the course of crypto week, it's really no different to what happened with Trump's inauguration. And now that we have absolutely bolstered this high, I have a bit more conviction here that we could possibly see something rather sinister, like I've been saying. Now, the key to understanding this as well is if we start to see a reversal from this region, obviously, once we see this weekly closure, we could just slam back into this level. And depending on the level of risk or depending on what happens, this could theoretically still bring us back down to this level in one go. I would say more to the mid 90s would be the current, risk threshold for me at this point in time. But as always, I look at this and think, right, the market's beginning to rally ahead of this event where everyone is saying it's going to be bullish for crypto, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Right now, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And as always, high expectations can frequently lead to disastrous outcomes when it comes to the financial market, specifically crypto, when sentiment is engineered in several directions prior to significant manipulation. One of my initial thoughts here is something could be said or indicated or even put into legislative action potentially next week. I think it's going to be a trap that will lead us higher. Now, I also want to mention before we continue further with all of this as well, I mean, Ethereum, like we said, $3,000, almost at our level. Hopefully we can get that push, and even XRP, what a beautiful movement so far. But I also want to address a question here that was covered in the previous video. Now, someone said this is more, a sentiment outlook versus technical analysis, and that is correct. So I want to explain that as well. I do all of the analysis beforehand. That is for the members. The members see what goes into this. The members see where I plot these levels, why I plot these levels, and why I take these trades, so they can learn themselves. But when it comes to the YouTube videos, I don't want to waste your time by sitting there and redrawing and showing you absolutely everything. Furthermore, people pay to see that. And also, the levels work. You're seeing the outcome of these regions. You're seeing the results. So I'm doing this to simplify the process, just to make that very clear and simple. Now, the key for us is total market cap first and foremost. As we now strike our level, absolutely pinpoint to the T. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. This, for me, is a clear indication that something is brewing. Now, when I say something brewing, you guys know I've been very, very open and very, very upfront from literally this point in time that I think an alt season is coming. Now, with where we currently are, this could be the key to an alt season taking place, but it may not happen without one more shakeup. This is why I've been positioned. We're up around 50K on one portfolio at the moment. I'm up maybe another 20K on a few other portfolios, and that's with meme coins as well, but altcoins still essentially near all-time lows. Nothing has really rallied that significantly. But the reason why I wanted this, and the reason why I've been embedding this into your minds here, is that if we get this move, I think this is the catalyst required for a BTC rotation to take place. The BTC dominance is at a very vital trend line here right now, and I have a pretty good feeling there is a chance this could bounce if BTC drops lower. Should this happen, altcoins could get battered temporarily. I'm a bit conflicted on what altcoins may possibly do here, to be honest with you, because there is a chance if BTC starts to pull back or stabilize, we could see XRP, Ethereum, and various others push further. In fact, if this happens, the one thing we need to watch for here for the weekly closure is, will the total market cap also flush these highs at least and liquidate this region? That's not going to really be determined, and you can never entirely predict those things. But I think if I'm going off the basis of what I think BTC will do, I will be open-minded to the idea that any form of BTC stability or pullback here could potentially launch that total market cap higher. The question at this point is, if BTC does what I think it's going to do, potentially from next week onwards, like I said in the last week video, I thought this was going to happen this week. What if this is the great trap before the opposite happens the following week? I mean, we know how these things tend to play out. Now, the only real question I have, which will not yet be determined and we must be open-minded to, is what altcoins do in this circumstance. Will this nuke the altcoins back down to where they came from? Or will this allow altcoins to finally thrive? Judging from the fact everything is currently all aligned, I would say, there is a greater risk at this point that everything could drop lower. But what I will say from the offset is, if we do not take out this high right now on the total market cap, that could be one of the biggest indications we could physically receive that the market is still due to go higher. And as a matter of fact, with or without the black swan at this point, I call it a black swan. I just mean a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Maybe it will be a black swan. If it's a black swan, you want to be looking back down to these lows immediately. And my God, would that be beautiful if it happens? That's a bit more optimistic, but again, I want to throw out the possibilities because at these points in times, people will not look lower. People will purely be looking upwards. And furthermore, when you've got crypto week approaching, people will obviously be subconsciously embedded once again to view this as a pure bullish event. I see these things differently. I see price driving up ahead of news. I see a bunch of people coming in, a huge wave of shorters liquidated, and a whole bunch of new longs have entered town. We haven't seen that much of a significant pullback just yet. But I think this is going to become, not necessarily this, but I think we can at least get back down to where we started. Now, if altcoins pump first, this is very important to note. If we see this rip up first to, as you guys know, the 4 trillion to even 4.5 trillion region, and BTC somewhat stabilizes in this vicinity here. Let me show this side by side. So let's say now, with the levels we've got mapped out, also I've switched the chart color schemes just so you know, I forgot to mention, because my eyes have really been hurting since we've set up the office in Dubai, and using my larger monitor, the colors have really been hurting my eyes. So I've just switched back to a more cleaner scheme for now that's a bit smoother on the senses. But let's just say from where we are now to around 120, if BTC stabilizes or reverses from this level, the first thing we must look for here is if the total market cap launches further from this. The reasoning for that is because if BTC stabilizes or even slams down aggressively, I would say at this point, because of where it is, we have the utmost confirmation that rotations are taking place. And if you take a look over here, after all of this chop, look at the movements already. This should be another crystal clear indication of why it's incredibly plausible an alt season is still on the verge of happening. How can it not be when these coins are moving in this manner? This is proof there is capital being allocated to these coins. So you must not listen to people that say this time's different or anything else for that matter, because they always say that. Every single cycle, there is a reason or excuse for why something can't happen. And we're seeing the market prove that to us right now in this very moment in time. Furthermore, the way I visualize this right now, and I want to try and get this across in the best way I can, but as you see BTC doing this, and then you look over here at these coins like F and XRP, I'm not going to show you the ones that we've bought, but looking at these ones as a main reference point, which I call the majors, you can clearly see there is almost a form of suppression here. Something is crippling these altcoins. Something is suppressing them and stopping them from truly blowing. That's BTC. This cycle has been different with the introduction of ETFs, and Wall Street and institutions jumping into the game has changed the game. And BTC has taken the forefront currently. But once the show ends for BTC, and it could very well begin to happen from here, we have the most amount of money ever made in history on Bitcoin circulating right now. Many arguments say the same thing. Oh, it's all in the ETFs, they won't rotate. There is just as much money flowing through the crypto ecosystem, rest assured. And furthermore, the coins on the right-hand side, XRP and F, are proving to you already that money is jumping in. And in fact, most altcoins you hold will likely have jumped with this current surge as well. Even if it's in the slightest manner, they're moving up in symmetry as always. Once the BTC show ends, with the most amount of money ever recorded in profits, this dropping will likely confirm the realized profit event. The only question right now is whether altcoins will suffer from a result as this. But what I will say is if this happens, it could very well be all in moment. I would likely go in with the final amount of capital I have left. And I think we need to be very open-minded here, because when the market enters this territory of breaching all-time highs, it's more likely we are approaching the finale phases for the cycle. This will not continue going up forever, and eventually something will have to bring this down. But when we look at these altcoins in their current phase, XRP again is the one that I feel at best may push up higher. I know there's loads of predictions for $10 and $20, and maybe I am wrong. Maybe I am horribly wrong on this, but I generally view these in the way that those that have done the biggest movements are often the ones that don't go much higher. They kind of remain limited between their high window. And if anything, with the amount of money going into XRP right now, plus also just factoring in that Brad Garlinghouse will apparently be talking at Crypto Week or giving a statement or whatever, you know, doesn't always end well in that way. And if anything, it could just be the perfect exit liquidity generation to end up spiking this up to the $3 region, maybe $4 if we're lucky. And this would likely also be a contributing factor to a rotation. Remember, it's never the retail that takes profits and contributes to the rotation. So my eyes are currently looking at XRP here, thinking, right, there's a huge amount of money that's been made from XRP. This has become almost the Ethereum of the current cycle. And then you've got BTC here completely controlling and crippling the remainder of the market. If we get, very important, if we see this situation, let me move this out of the way, if this stabilizes here or slumps and the total market cap pumps instead, there is a much higher probability that something very, very bad could happen down to this region. And the reason for that is because all of these coins would theoretically catch up to a very fair standpoint where this move down would contribute to them coming back into their lows. That would be the same as XRP essentially back down in the 60 cents region. On the opposing side, if they remain where they are and BTC begins to drop, and these altcoins drop with BTC, if we are to see a reversal from this region, then the likelihood is, in my opinion, that would be the final drop we see on altcoins before a full-blown alt season is initiated. And it would make perfect sense, in my opinion, because the alt season narratives are somewhat returning. But I'm very concerned about the Clarity Act and various other things because they could easily give a glimmer or a whisper that they may classify certain things as securities. There's always things that go wrong, and because they're making this seem like they're going to turn the US into the crypto capital of the world, well, Trump's inauguration was also meant to be the rocket ship to the moon, and that done the exact opposite. So in this territory, we know sentiment is always at its highest and most emotional on the greed scale, which I believe is setting a huge catalyst for a trap. And the key to an alt season is really going to be BTC slowing down at this point. One of the highest, in fact, the highest price ever recorded in BTC history. So of course it takes significantly larger quantities to dump this thing as well. The simple fact of the matter is, as these remain compressed, you must just understand the simplicity of this situation is if BTC drops here and the altcoins dump with it, the likelihood is that's where the rotation takes place from there to there. So if these drop back down, that's where the money from here will trickle, and the money from here will likely trickle. I'm trying to draw this in the best way I can to those coins that suffer as a consequence. This is a vital moment, but the bullishness has now exceeded a very large threshold, in my opinion. And this may be the key moment of truth before something very, very bad happens. If we do see this pullback from our first targeted level and this low is not wiped, the one thing I will say with almost absolute certainty is whether we get a mere modest drop back into the level of resistance turn support, or whether something more sinister comes through into this region. If that high is not taken out, I am going to significantly make an assumption here that altcoins will be the contributing factor to this. And in fact, if we get a flush out, especially if we take out those lows from here, it will be that close near-death experience where everyone goes from complete greed and euphoria to the government potentially saying something or introducing a certain legislative act. Everyone gets terrified, and that would likely be the real black swan area. If we can see this factoring in, even going lower, potentially hitting the trend line, I really want to be open-minded here because this could be the birthing ground, and arguably, if you're lucky enough and you didn't buy those altcoins where we did and where I was telling you it's a good idea to buy, this could be your second opportunity. And I say this because if it happens, I believe we will then absolutely send to the moon. I believe we will then see the alt season where you guys know, I really think things can escalate here. Like this is not bearish right now. And even what I'm showing you here is not bearish in any way, shape or form. I just think the logical play here is to be a bit sensible right now. We've had the pump, we've been tracking this for weeks on end. We've struck into all the key regions. We've got the high wipe, and also it's the monthly high wipe. We have 20 days left. This is really, really important to understand. With 20 days left and candles being incredibly crafty shape-shifting forms, this could change very quickly. And what you currently see here may not be what it looks like in 20 days' time. In fact, you can actually see precisely at the 92.93 level, there is a huge window here for price to potentially still fall down to. So you want to be very open-minded in this area, because I do currently believe this is a huge distraction mechanism. I believe it's a trap right now, and I'm going to stick to that in the current phase. I switched bias when I did, and I'm very glad I did. But I think at this point, my bias switch was more so to see this initial movement. And like I said in the videos, a black swan will not happen where you expect it. But if something bad is going to happen, this would most definitely be the area where something very, very bad begins to happen, I say. It's a crucial region. Aggressive pump. 2 days and 17 hours, we move into the so-called crypto week. I don't think that's a coincidence. And time again, the market has proven to us, when it does something drastic like this ahead of a major event, fundamental or whatever else, it can often be the birthing ground for a trap. And you always want to have that open-minded view. It is a very large contrarian view. It goes significantly against the market. But as we look at the aggression of these candles ripping highs, there are essentially no shorters left within the market. It will be a pure buyer's market. And I think if you really look at this plausibly, with the sweeps we've seen and the fake shakeout, what has everyone done here? We know a lot of people got shaken out. And the reason why I've been significantly bullish in the short term for this sort of movement, I didn't mean to draw that way, but there's been minimal pullbacks. And why I've been pursuing this level is because I had a feeling this move would be a necessity. Why is this move a necessity? Because everyone that got shaken out here or didn't buy was waiting for that pullback. And this is all I was seeing. Pullback to here, pullback to here, pullback to here, then we buy. Nobody got that. So where do you think those people who missed this low would jump in? Furthermore, to combine this together, what is the simplicity of this area? Like I said, flush the lows, the highs will be next. And the best traps are often created when the range highs are broken in such a brute force, which is exactly what we're seeing here as well. I do find it intriguing how these have driven up quite nicely at this point in time as well. But I actually believe at the moment, whilst the inner moon boy within me, because I am now in $250,000 in recent buys in altcoins, by the way. I am balls deep in altcoins theoretically, and I want to go testicular deep if we do get another dip and get another opportunity. The inner moon boy within me and the alt season boy really wants to see things just blow to the upside from here. But I do think some great opportunities could be coming, and it's always in that very moment where you feel you're at the point of no return, the market will come in a rather brutal manner and manipulate everybody. And this is why this video is important. It's not just to say I've officially started shifting my bias back to the downside, but it's also to let you know this is not a bearish outlook. In fact, this could be the next best opportunity for you guys if we see something next week onwards potentially ruin everything we currently have here right now. It's never going to be when you expect. And if you have been paying attention to these videos, and I appreciate all the good feedback I have received. The good feedback, it's good to see you guys watching, because I know you guys have been taking trades from this and even got into a few spot buys off these videos as well. So I appreciate you guys for that, but I really made it clear that this would likely be the bad situation, the sinister situation. So I'm going to stick to what I've been saying week by week. Again, this is a progressive journey for me at the moment. But moving into next week, it warrants dangers. And as always, you need to be careful. And I've had some fun, to be fair, being bullish. Now I see why everyone does it. It's rather exhilarating, to say the very least. No wonder everyone just screams to the moon 24/7. But the truth is, that's not how I view the markets 24/7. And when a pump is visible, I will examine that pump. But I do think here, risks are being warranted and risks must be considered. The key to this, as always, as I cover in every single video, when I provide you these risks, similar to this here, I said not to fear this. This was the best opportunity for the buys, and that's exactly what happened. And the same is applied now. There is just a greater potential for this to be far more significant than you could assume. Is that another zone? Yes, it is. My apologies. There's the 4 trillion zone. It got lost in the white background there. Do I have any more? I do. Need to bring that one back as well. Now, to be honest, I'm still open to this idea. If something really, really bad happens, we are definitely going back to 80k. But I think keeping it simple at the moment, the 100 to 90k region is really the current safe zone, I would say. Dare I say a safe zone where something, keyword unpredictable, could take place and reset these back down to the ground level. In key areas like this, before an actual season occurs, and especially at the peak hype of a bull market, the market will often do, as it always does, especially when making new highs, even something like this. If you were to look at it in this manner, I think even something along these lines could very well be on the cusp of happening once again. If you really go to the full-blown outer picture, there's of course still numerous probabilities for where this thing could go. You know, there is absolutely nothing stopping this from slamming back down to there. But right now, that's not really a level of focus. I think a safe zone is in between this window here, because it would then theoretically nuke the lows one more time. But I also want to mention, it doesn't mean I'm bearish on BTC. In fact, you can see the higher levels up above there for a reason. And as always, even in an alt season, the altcoins do not go up individually. The altcoins go up collectively with BTC, but we definitely, at this point, I feel, need some form of catalyst for the BTC profits to be rotated. And I always try to think in the minds of an institution. I always try and think, if I was in their shoes and I was a whale of that size, what would I do in these situations? Let's just say, and believe this or not, the markets are rigged. The markets are fully controlled. It's evident time and time again. And I think if we do see a reversal from here, that will be further evidence if everything I've shown you thus far is not enough evidence. But put yourself in the shoes of someone that has the capability to move these markets. I look at these candles, and this is covered in our psychology series as well. I view these candles as essentially all traps, because they are created by a collective of very wealthy people. These are not coincidence. It's not just a mirror or a reflection of people buying and selling. These candles are clear indications of what whoever is capable of moving these things wants you to think, feel, and believe. And when you understand that and begin to correspond that with rising fundamental events or something round the corner that's being heavily anticipated, you often then begin to see time and time again the market deploys traps. So let's say you are those individuals, and I always show this, but if you are going to sell your BTC, if you are holding billions and billions of dollars in BTC, you can't take profit here, because that's where everyone's capitulating. That's where people and these individuals have been buying, I would say, because this move is not retail. Retail do not create these moves. As always, retail jump in above. And because everyone's been theoretically sidelined, and it feels quite nice to say, because even I'm not cough cough sidelined at this point in time. In fact, we're up very nicely and positioned very well. But if you are a whale, or you are part of the inner elite, dare I say, if you're going to sell your BTC, you need to convince as many people as possible to buy. And I would say this is becoming one of those areas for this. Furthermore, if you crash BTC and you nuke the altcoins in the process, let's just say back down to their lows. I'm not going to give specific regions and levels, but I want to give you guys a bit of a heads up here, because you're probably going to be seeing the complete opposite on YouTube right now, which means I must put the Captain FUD hat back on temporarily. If invalidated, we're going to absolutely fly. It's a win-win situation at this point. But if we can see this drop and you're a whale and this happens, well, you know the money has officially left BTC. So that money is going to be rotated back into the system. It could even drop lower than the levels, and the levels are on the chart. I don't need to break that down for you again. But I'm afraid to say for now, I do believe the fun keyword is temporarily over. We're going to see what happens next week, and as always, I'll be back with another video. But I really think you should all be cautious here. Be very, very careful, because if something comes through moving into the next 2 weeks, I would say that's going to be a bottom marking event. If something really bad can happen, or they say something stupid, or whatever it may be, I think that will be the catalyst to trigger in the alt season. It will go from greed to sheer fear. And if something happens with enough aggressive force to the downside, the likelihood is, as we saw over here, even coming back to this level will scare people at this point. It's always how it goes. If something along these lines happens, people will be terrified. They will no way buy. And I would say that's the point where we begin to enter the final phases of the cycle. And then we will officially see the alt season. It will never happen when everyone expects. If we're very lucky, this drops now and altcoins start flying straight away. And then you're looking at F. As you guys know, I do believe F is going to start breaching to $8,000 to $10,000 at some point, which is quite crazy for a man like me to say. The key for me right now is just trying to gauge where that begins from. It's fully capable of taking place from where we are, but the risk to reward, quite frankly, is just not favorable right now. And I would say if you see a sharp black swanish style event, that's going to be your key catalyst to rebuild some entries if you're not already in. But so far, so good. Let's keep this flowing. It's a very, very exciting time. I am so happy to see this outcome right now and see these levels completely fulfilled. So I also want to thank you guys for sticking with me and believing in me theoretically as well. Because obviously with the downside bias that I currently had, it was getting a lot of hate and a lot of attack. And that's probably what contributed to a lot of people not believing that this would happen, because you're probably thinking, 1 minute, the most notorious bear with the hairiest hands in the world has suddenly switched bullish at the highs. But that was kind of the concept. It was being ridiculed and people were actually becoming more bearish than me. And that was really scaring me. But I think with seeing this all fulfilled right now, we have the prime framework, the formula, the recipe, all of the ingredients for this perfect potion have started aligning, I feel. So one more time, just be careful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.